Why is the thin skull rule crucial for personal injury causation? Imagine you bump into someone with a very fragile bone structure and they end up with a broken bone. You might think, well, they were already weak. But in law, that's exactly why the thin skull rule exists. It's a principle that makes sure you are responsible for all the harm caused, even if the person was more vulnerable than most. In personal injury cases, causation is about proving that your wrongful act led directly to the injury. The thin skull rule says that once you show your actions caused the injury, you have to accept the full extent of the damage. It doesn't matter if the injured person had a pre-existing condition that made their injury worse. You are liable for everything that happened because of your act. For example, if someone with weak bones gets into a minor car accident and breaks a leg, you can't argue that the injury was worse because of their fragile bones. You are still responsible for all the damage. This rule makes sure that the injured person gets fair compensation for all their injuries, not just the ones that would happen to a healthy person. The reason this rule is so important is that it prevents defendants from escaping liability by claiming the injury was more severe because of the victim's health. It recognizes that the defendant's wrongful act was the main cause of the injury, even if the injury was made worse by pre-existing vulnerabilities. This keeps the legal process fair and honest. It's also different from the crumbling skull rule, which limits recovery if the injury would have worsened anyway due to a pre-existing condition. The thin skull rule applies when the defendant's act caused or sped up the injury beyond what would have naturally happened. In simple terms, the thin skull rule means that in personal injury law, the defendant is responsible for all the harm that results from their actions. It ensures that victims with pre-existing vulnerabilities are not left without full compensation. This rule keeps the focus on the defendant's responsibility and makes sure justice is served for everyone, no matter how fragile they might be.